Hi everybody, welcome to week 8. Just a quick intro screencast today. This week we'll be talking about surrealism and modern photography. And I just want to set that up with a couple of comments. Before I do that, I want to just mention that the reading this week is Gompertz chapter 14 on surrealism. You're also required to watch a short film. The film is entitled Un Chien Andalou. It's a very famous surrealist film. Was collaboration between Luis Buñuel and Salvador Dali. It's very well known. I will say it's a bit graphic in the beginning. There's a scene which might shock you a little bit. I will tell you that there's some violence. That violence was not actually perpetrated on a human being, although it was an animal. So I do just want to warn you about that. But you will see that this film does not make a whole lot of sense, and that's kind of the idea. So the more you get familiar with the characteristics of surrealism, I think you'll understand why it doesn't make particular narrative sense. We have a journal response this week. It's a comparison and contrast between a Dada work and a surrealist work. So I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a moment. There's also a quiz and an optional discussion board if you're compelled to talk a little bit about the film Un Chien Andalou. Okay, so we have a slide lecture. I think it's about 19 minutes. Please watch that carefully and take notes. And then here's the film Un Chien Andalou. That's also, I think, about 15 or 16 minutes. Yeah, 16 minutes. And then here's the optional discussion board on that. There is the week 8 quiz. And then for the comparison and contrast general response, please follow the tip sheet that I put together. I've actually reattached it. This is this tip sheet only includes the point-by-point method. That is the method I want you to use this week. So please read that carefully so you understand how to go through the steps of a comparison and contrast essay, and that will constitute your journal for this week. Okay, let's see. So just some very quick thoughts about surrealism. Last week, covering Dada, I think you saw that there was this growing anti-art sentiment, or anti-aesthetic, anti-beauty. And artists wanted to push the limits of what art could be. They also wanted to make art that wasn't necessarily particularly pleasing, that somebody would want to hang on the wall of their house, or perhaps in a gallery or museum. However, it's amazing how resilient the idea of art is. People certainly did collect that work, and it has become part of the same art markets as other arts from other movements and eras. But I think it's important to just emphasize the degree to which Dada wanted to be a statement, an artistic statement against art, right? So that sounds a little contradictory. They felt that art was becoming too commercialized, too much wrapped up in market systems, they wanted to really rebel and reject the status quo. Well, in a way, surrealism directly comes out of Dada and extends the project of Dada. However, most of it uses traditional materials, sculpture and painting, drawing, etc. So it does sort of return to some of the material concerns of earlier art. But I do want you to think of it as, ask yourself the question, what is it that artists feel needs to be rebelled against? What are they rejecting? And I want to make a really important point here. Up until the 19th century, the art world had a very distinct patron system. Patron system meaning somebody who paid for the artworks, right? Somebody commissioned an artist, whether it was the church or the state, right, the government, or wealthy patrons. Generally, an artist worked under the notion of a contract, and that meant satisfying the taste of the patron. Well, the patron system falls apart with modernism. Isn't this another reason why we're seeing all this wild experimentation, right? Is because artists no longer have to please anybody but themselves. They might think they have an audience or believe in a particular sort of audience. And sure, they might work with an art dealer and know that certain customers like certain works, but in the end, they're very much free to experiment the way they want to. So by the time we get to Dada and Surrealism, artists are very much trying to break with or react against the status quo, right? And they don't feel they have a lot to lose because they don't have a patron system. When I say the status quo, what am I talking about? What's happening? It's a very violent period. There are more people who die in World War I and World War II. There are more people who died in the 20th century in war than many other centuries combined. But then we also have a kind of a growing order, a sort of bureaucratic order, the way people live, what the government knows about them. Society becomes more and more organized and perhaps banal in a way, right? Less experimental. Right? The suburbs are born, and I'm not criticizing these institutions. I'm saying that artists are pushing against them. So this idea that you can create a surrealist art or art that goes beyond realism is very much a reaction against what is perhaps, that there's a concern on the part of the artist that modern life is becoming boring, banal, uninteresting, highly controlled by government, by authority. And they want to break free of what they consider sort of the bonds of those institutions. So that's just a quick overview of something about the kind of the social context and historical context of Surrealism. So as usual, please feel free to drop me an email if you have any questions. Again, we're talking about Gompertz, Chapter 14, the slide lecture on Surrealism, watching the film Un Chien Andalou, doing a journal response that is a well-crafted compare and contrast mini essay that follows the criteria of the tips sheet that I have attached at the very bottom of this weekly module, and then an optional discussion board if you're inclined to want to say something about the film. Don't try to look at Surrealism and think it has to make sense, because it will not. And that is the whole point. All right, have a great week, and enjoy your spring breaks. Oh, one thing about spring break, I'm going to be away, so I might be a little behind grading assignments because I will not have access to internet while I'm away. So I hope you can be patient about that, and enjoy your time, and I hope you have a few days to breathe and enjoy what feels like spring weather. All right, take care now. Bye-bye.